So this part of the lesson is about the service learning. We have talked a bit about service learning, and this is a nice overview, this part of the lesson regarding service learning. This is part of your the expectation as student physical therapist assistants is to participate in service learning. It is actually a requirement. It is a CAPTE standard, the Commission of Accreditation of Physical Therapy Education, and it's also a program expectation. So we introduce it in fall term, so you can start to think about service learning and perhaps even consider starting a service learning project even as soon as over holiday break or into early next year. So I'm giving you the guidelines on service learning, the definite kind of black and white, that its expectation is to spend at least 10 hours, and that is the bare minimum. There are many students that do more than that, and I'll just repeat this and I'll highlight it. You are not 100% wedded to your choice, meaning that if you change your mind between the end of the term and sometime next year, that's fine, and I may even change that to next year, because you may be deciding like in February, March, or even into April that you are going to make a shift, that you've decided after talking to some people that instead of, for example, working in the Hearts and Vine service learning project in Medford, that you would rather work with Susan in the Howard STEPS program, working with pediatrics, because you want to have that pediatric experience, and that is fine. I will be following up with you next year, particularly as we get closer into March, about where you're at in the process of service learning, if you've actually reached out to some organization that we have listed. I will show you here in just a minute. And that you'll be communicating this through actually me, not through Christina Howard, if you change your mind. So I'm changing that to me, since it just makes more sense. So if you have something in mind that, we'll talk about this in a minute. Let's just kind of go through this. So here's a timetable. It's very well written, very specific. Kind of what you're going to be doing later in winter term in terms of looking at your service learning project. We'll talk about that more as we get into winter term. You don't need to split hairs about that now. You have enough on your plate than to worry about an assignment that's not going to come until winter term. And then you're not going to actually be composing a letter introduction. You're actually going to be completing an assignment that lives in Moodle that we'll look at here in just a minute. So let's just look at the community partners, and then we can look briefly at the questions, and then at the assignment specifically. So I've put all the various service learning projects that have been done in the last couple years successfully and that currently are have volunteer opportunities in this Google Doc. Sometimes these organizations are a little bit fluid. They're not-for-profit organizations, which means that one year they may be looking for volunteers, and perhaps the next year, due to financial challenges, they may not have as many opportunities for students. So that's why I put it in the doc here, so it can be modified as needed. And it also can be something that I can access quickly if you for example, are stuck and forget to write down a contact number for your service learning organization. So we have a variety. I have several that are specific to Southern Oregon. I mentioned Hearts and Vine of Jackson County and CASA. These are just two really good organizations. Students have had some really good experiences as recently as this past year. And then we have opportunities to work with Susan, specifically in classroom. and that's listed here. And she takes up to 4 students. Now, Special Olympics I have listed the Eugene contact information. Special Olympics had a really rough financial year that just got straightened out, meaning they got increased funding from the state of Oregon to help the organization. And so I don't know what they have available outside of Eugene, to be honest, since last year was not a good year anywhere to participate as a volunteer, or certainly as a participant. There was not opportunity, so they've reached with funding now. They are opening up some opportunities for participants, and that would lead to some opportunities to volunteer. So I don't need to go through every one of these organizations. You can see it here. You can click links and look more at these organizations. These are ones that currently students have volunteered in the class of 2020, or as recent as students have volunteered the class who graduated last year. So I really like the Grace Care Center opportunity. That is an opportunity in Corvallis that has been a good one for some students. So I know a number of you are from Corvallis area in Linn County, so I mentioned that specifically. The MS Society has a walk or a bike event that takes place in end of July, early August. This, of course, needs to be changed to 2020. But we had about 5 students volunteer last year, and generally we have 5 or 6 to do that event. Students from across the state. It's not in Lane. The event is not in Lane or Jackson County. It's actually up in Polk County, which is north of Linn County, and on your way to Lincoln City if you're coming from Salem. So this could be a good opportunity for those of you in the Valley. And it's you have the information here on the link. It's a wonderful organization, one that I've participated in quite a bit as a participant, raising money for MS. This is another good organization, the Tour de Cure. It's actually up in the Hillsborough area. We've had students from across the state, from as far south as Medford, actually drive up and participate in that event as recent as last year, or this year, I think. Food for Linn County, but certainly going back to the Ride Oregon for diabetes, we did have students do that for SLP in 2018. I'm not 100% positive about 2019, but it's an organization that really likes our volunteers, our students. Food for Linn County is a great organization here to help with food insecurity. So many opportunities for the organization. This is a very popular Relay for Life. You may be familiar with this, those who live in the Eugene area. And I believe they actually have an event too in Medford, but you have to look into that. You can look into the American Cancer Society and look into that. I do recall students a few years ago from Medford participating in a similar event. And then there's some other organizations, such as simple as the OPTA, that needs volunteers as well. This is another really great event, a Candlelighters Family Camp. We had 3 students last year participate in that and had really good experiences. The contact information is actually in Portland, but the actual event, they do have one in Lane County. All right, I think that's enough for now on that. I will put another short video up on service learning in just a minute.